Hello and welcome. I'm Don Woolley, your host for Four Men in America. I will be joined on Zoom in a few minutes by Paul Fitch from Green Valley, Arizona, Jeff Hooch, Tucson, Arizona, and Bobby Wilson from Sahuarita, Arizona. I am in Florida. Our goal is to inform you about current events, news, and politics around the world, in the U.S., and in our states, and perhaps even events happening locally. There's so much going on right now, and we hope you will join us every Friday and hear what we have to say about it all. You can watch the program on YouTube. The channel is SACPAC, SACPAC / Don Woolley, WOOLLEY. And also you can watch it on Rumble. The channel is D Woolley, WOOLLEY 13. And that's on Rumble. And look for the Florida U.S. flag logo. Now let's get started this week. Good afternoon, fellas.
How's
Hey,
everybody doing?
Don,
Good. We're good.
Jeff.
I
We're
sent
down
out,
one today.
Yeah, I sent out an update to you guys about that was an article that was in the Butler County Eagle. I don't know if you. Good afternoon, fellas.
How's
Hey,
everybody doing?
Don,
Good. We're good.
Jeff.
Um, I
We're
sent
down
out,
one today.
Yeah, I sent out an update to you guys about that was an article that was in the Butler County Eagle. I don't know if you saw it or not. It had the
Yep.
it had uh, representatives' first cut report, I guess you'd call it, about the assassination attempt. And the most interesting thing of that whole article, and we're following up to our discussion last week, was the fact that one of the Butler SWAT members actually took the first shot at Crooks. Did you read that in there? Did you guys see
Yeah, I
that?
read
did.
that he smacked his buffer tube.
Yeah.
I think I read that.
Hit
Yeah.
his stock and it disintegrated and cut up his head and his shoulder and he fell. I guess he fell, and then when he jumped up is when the Secret Service shot him. So that begs other questions, though, but it's really interesting because I had never heard that someone else had shot him before the Secret Service killed him. And then
Right.
the other thing he revealed is that on July 23rd, which is only 10 days after the attempt, they cremated his body, and the coroner did not know that he didn't have the body.
It's hard to dispute the coroner's results if your body's all turned into gray ashes.
Yeah. So it really just begs more and more questions, doesn't it?
Yeah, this doesn't help dispel conspiracy theories
Yeah,
out.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, goodness.
It really just makes people think about their own thoughts and put together their own theories about it. But boy, it sure doesn't make you feel much better that we've got the right things going on now. I couldn't get an update about the Pennsylvania, the Butler County DA and the grand jury investigation. I haven't seen anything updated about that.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't have anything for you there. And if you guys if you heard anything else, heard anybody else voice an opinion about it, let's hear
Have
what they
not.
have to say. Yeah.
Glad they're doing it though.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
probably going to take some time to do it right. So
Yeah, and we're probably not going to hear anything out of the FBI investigation.
Well, that's the scary part. They evidently have closed the books on this thing pretty much, and they're going to keep it as close to the vest as they can.
Yeah, well, Representative Clay Higgins, who's the one that wrote the report, he said that the FBI knew they were going to have this special committee to investigate. So he's very suspicious about them and what they've done with the body and some other things that, like, they cleaned up the crime scene. He says that's unheard of in police work, police never clean up a crime scene. You know,
Hmm.
you have other people, special people that do that. So, and then he,
Well, and you also have to wonder if the FBI is putting pressure on the local county investigation. And if they've asked them to give them, a courtesy brief look at what they're putting out before they actually put it out to the public.
oh
And
yeah, sure.
all these backroom things going on. I don't know, but and again, 5 years ago, I wasn't one to think like this. But boy, they've helped turn the corner on me and a lot of others too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
They've sullied their own reputation for
Yeah.
honesty. And there's no reason for anybody, in my mind, well, I hate to say this, but there's no reason to believe anything they say.
Yeah.
They will make it up. This thing with Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, there were like 3 real honest to goodness militiamen and 9 FBI agents to put all that together.
Wow.
It's just insane. And if you watch on Rumble, American Radicals, that's Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. They'll tell you some strange stuff about the FBI creating crimes so that they can solve them, so they can get budget increases.
Yeah.
So, and that's perfectly feasible. The way you advance in the government is you get more people under you.
oh sure.
You create a problem, you solve it, you get some hero time, and then they give you a little bit more responsibility. So you add some people under you, and that bumps you up from the GS11 to a GS12 to a GS13. Then you're in the SES, and pretty soon life is good.
I think I told you guys my grandfather was a 25-year police veteran of the Colorado Springs Police Force, and his biggest complaint about the FBI is when they worked with him, and even when they discovered the evidence or whatever, the FBI always had to take credit for everything, right? The local police, when they solved an investigation or whatever it was, they never really got credit for anything. So down to the officer level, right? There was some words said at some special news briefing, right? But the people never got anything out of it. Never got any.
That's a shame to have a reputation like that.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
Is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny to me now. You realize I think aren't there at least 3 FBI shows on TV right now?
Could well be. I remember that from Zimbalist Jr.
Well, yeah, that was the original one, right? My daughter used to think the name of the show was FBI in Color because it always came up on the screen, FBI in Color. So she says, "Oh, it's time for the FBI in Color." But yeah, I think there's at least 2 on CBS on 2 different nights that are tied to the FBI somehow. So they really try.
So how do they gain their credibility back? I mean, that's a big question. I get news feeds and emails from the Washington Post, and I don't know how I got on their list, but I get them.
Yeah.
But I read very few because I don't. It's like, why waste my time on things that I don't believe anyway? I mean, it's probably good to know what the adversary's thinking. And sometimes they probably do have very truthful articles or,
Yeah.
but because they are known along with the New York Times and other media outlets as being so biased and untruthful, it's almost why waste your time reading those things.
Yeah.
So how do you get that back? I'm not sure. It's
I
going to
don't
take
know.
a
It
lot.
seems to me it's going to be a top-down thing, and the person that that becomes the one in charge of the FBI, whoever replaces Ray, and I have no doubt he'll be replaced if Trump gets elected. And he's got to start with his department heads and then just rock and roll all the way down. And then I mean, everything that they take on, they're going to have to learn to be transparent about what they're doing, and their people just have to learn a different way to do things. I mean, it's going to take it's going to take a lot of time to get the American people's confidence back. That's for sure.
If it ever comes back.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's if, the Republicans win and change it,
Right.
if the Democrats win and, I am surprised. If they would have they being the Democrat Party would have nominated somebody more under the radar than our vice president, then I would understand the Democrat bump. And I understand it because it's someone other than Biden, right? You couldn't do necessarily worse than that, in my opinion, except for the person they picked.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult. Maybe Bernie Sanders, or AOC. They could do worse than Biden. But it's hard to imagine how they could do much
I don't
worse.
know.
Yeah. But even so, the American people, just seem to want to have somebody else to vote for. And even if of course, the mainstream media is all in to trying to rebrand Kamala, but really the American people, I don't think have any excuse. But they don't have any excuse. And even on the supposed Republican side, the anti-Trumpers, the never-Trumpers, I've seen some things going around Facebook where actually some former Republicans that I know, not pretend Republicans, are so in the never Trump crowd that they're, with Kamala. And it's, this debate between character and policy and this, that, and the other, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But I do think we need to hone our thoughts, sharpen our pencils. And because I do think there's some people that are still convincible to come over to the Republican side, which I really believe if the Republicans don't win, it really means the American people have chosen a policy, at least, that is far away from the American founding and our principles as one could imagine.
Yeah, you're right. No doubt about it. Jim.
With eyes wide open.
Yeah, with
eyes wide open.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys about. I saw something in the news this week about Arizona, that the Arizona Republican Party had filed a lawsuit to get 40,000 illegals off the voter rolls. Did you guys hear that or see that or know?
I've seen something along those lines. That I think they hit Andrew Fontes with a suit. That could just be in Maricopa County. I'm not sure. I heard just a periphery of it. So
yeah, I think they're taking it up to they plan on taking it up to the Supremes, they said. So trying to get that done, but it's true in a lot of other states too. And that's, I keep telling people here in Florida that people talk about it. They think illegals are going to vote. Well, they're not going to vote. They just registered to get, they want their ballots. Okay. The Democrats want their ballots. They're going to take their ballots and vote for them. They're not going to vote. And you could put signs up at the polling places, and there are signs. I know the Tea Party Patriots made signs that say, if you vote, you're committing a felony. If you vote in a federal election, if you're here illegally.
Yeah, John and Paul, what about that? I think Heritage Action or one of those groups came out with some numbers on, illegals voting. And I was actually surprised. The numbers they had seemed low to me. Did you review that?
I think that's what Don's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I know he's talking about 45,000 in Arizona alone. And I mean that they didn't even have that many nationwide.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a liberal organization putting that out.
Yeah, I'm actually going, Patty and I are going to Atlanta Friday to a Heritage Action all-day meeting on Saturday.
Okay.
So I'm gonna see what they, what they know, what they have, and if I can get some more information about that, because it wasn't clear to me how many they were talking about. Their numbers seemed low to me too, but
Yeah.
yeah, this 40 or 45,000 was only Arizona that they knew were registered, illegals. So,
Well, that I'd be really interested to know because their numbers didn't seem
right,
to show that it was a major issue
yeah, exactly.
nationwide. It did not seem that it was. Now, and then when you get into the ballot harvesting, they put out some things state by state where it was legal in some states. It's not legal in other states.
Right.
You got to have designated people in some states.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly think the ballot harvesting, at least according to their numbers, was a bigger problem and issue, at least in 2020. It
Yeah.
seemed to be.
Yeah.
And in some states, it's legal.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
can't do, so ballot harvesting is just a way you can do it. And, the Democrats took advantage of that law and did it.
Yeah, and I know the Republicans have a program put together for ballot harvesting in the states that it's legal.
Yeah.
They're going to do the same thing. They're going to, help with that in a legal way, as legal as they can do it. They're not going to try to break the law.
Right.
So, yeah. And then the other thing I've kind of heard interesting is Dan Bongino. He's telling everybody don't vote on election day. He says, I know Republicans want to show their
Right.
pride and they want to vote on election day, and it's kind of a thing. But he said, after Arizona in 2020, with all the problems they had on election day, which could easily happen any state, anytime, any county, anywhere in the country, again, he said, vote early, bank your vote, get in and vote early, get voted, and get it done. So he might have a good point.
Yeah, well, one of the things that he was saying, that if you vote early, then it will avoid the problem of coming out on election day and finding out that you already voted.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other
So
that's the other
yeah.
thing, right? Yeah. Oh, gee, you already voted. Sorry.
Right.
Well, but I think it's also, people could be sick. They could have a kid that's sick. The weather could be bad.
Yeah.
So let's ensure that we get our votes in.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm also trying to find out. We had our primary yesterday in Florida,
hmm.
and I'm trying to find out what the what our participation rate was. I don't know that number yet, so I'll try to find that out and report to you guys, because Paul, you reported that or I'm sorry, Bobby reported that Arizona was 29%, which I did verify, and but one of the districts up in Maricopa County, there's a senator, one of your state senators named Shauna Bolick.
Yeah,
Who,
Shauna.
she is really good.
She's
I mean,
fantastic.
She is really good.
Yeah.
I've been corresponding with her off and on, and yeah,
Her
she's
husband's on the Arizona Supreme Court.
Right. Yeah.
No, she's always known her Constitution. She's always been right down the middle.
Yeah.
Always been impressed with her.
Yeah, she's very
Did
good.
she win? I didn't hear.
She won her primary easily, right. And she said the participation rate in her district was 49%.
Yeah.
So
that's actually pretty high
for a primary.
For primary.
So it kind of quite a bit above the state average, but I'm sure, I don't know what Pima County was, but I would bet Yuma County was way down, and some of the other outskirt counties, so, but voting is, vote early and often.
Yeah.
That's what they
No, that's the other side.
That's the other side. That's right. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. So, so what else? What do you guys think about the damn convention? Have you watched any of it? Are you paying attention? Or I'm just carrying snippets. I really can't sit for any length of time.
I watched. I watched a little bit of Hillary, and then I watched the last part of Michelle, Big Mike,
Yeah.
and Barack, very Soetoro there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're so realistic. You'd almost think they actually believed what they were saying. That Kamala is going to be the savior of freedom and liberty and small government, and it's just
It's just absurd.
embarrassing.
It's absurd. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I heard Barack Obama's talk was actually pretty good if he believed what he was saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
You
what I say.
Yeah, if they practice what they preach. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
he what he said and what he did were two different things.
Yeah.
And I think, Mr. Trump interfered with the Obama Clinton plan. It
Yeah.
would have destroyed us in 4 years instead of 8, because
Yeah.
we had some good in the middle there, and then they managed to get the sock puppet in to I don't know if you remember when somebody was interviewing Barack and he said, "Yeah, if I could just sit in my basement in my sweats and put a microphone in somebody's ear and I
Right.
could just tell them what to say, that would be great. He's not. I wouldn't have to be a president. I could just take care of the world from there." Well, I think he did.
Yeah. What a prophet, right?
Yeah.
He was
So
he was prophesizing. We didn't know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's what I tell people. 1984 is supposed to be a novel, not an instruction manual.
yeah, somebody just wrote an article in one of the local papers about Ayn Rand, and wow, it really hit home. She said if those younger Gen Z guys would read some Ayn Rand, it would do them a lot of good, right? They wouldn't be
Yes.
so anxious to have big government running their lives,
Yeah.
and ruining their lives. So yeah, it was pretty poignant.
Hmm.
So tell me what else is going on in Arizona.
Well, we've had the primaries earlier than Florida, so
Right.
we know who's running for what,
Yeah.
whether we're happy or not about it. And so hopefully people coalesce around the proper candidate and get them through. But I had my daughter-in-law ask me. She said, "Well, tell me if what would you say to somebody who's sitting on the fence between the Republican and Democrat ticket, as a president all the way down?" And my daughter-in-law is a very smart woman, a nurse, and as a child, and these kind of things. But we do have to remember that this isn't, their primary goal in life to follow politics and be
Right.
caught up in it.
Right.
But even so, we have to remember that, we kind of keep attuned to it more than the average person. But it surprises me a lot that many people really don't know the differences of the platforms of the policies between the Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
And I think it's, and I don't think the Republicans do a good job of really getting that out there. And I'm not blaming the national level. I'm saying locally and with our kids and the adventure that we can really teach our kids, like, look, you weren't sent here to be in a zoo to be taken care of. You look what our founders did. They gave up everything for the freedom and the opportunities it bring.
Yeah.
And they understood it was with risk, and they were willing to give up their safety and security and comfort.
And they all gave up their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just teach these things. And so I do think it's a little bit disheartening when I hear, what's the real difference, and you can even see or how many people really don't know who Kamala Harris is.
Yeah.
And that it's just not Joe Biden and what she has done in her career and what she has espoused, the whole way through. And it really is a little bit disheartening.
Yeah.
And I don't want to come off that way, because I think it should double our efforts to try to educate people.
Exactly.
The difference between open borders and not, and supporting Israel or not, or having some type of, really conscious foreign policy plan, or, being able to be energy independent and supply the world, and this nonsense of the global warming crowd that's willing to kill people now to supposedly save people later,
Yeah.
because of all the shortage. I can go on and on with that,
Oh,
but
yeah. No, you're
we
right.
know the differences, but we need to get it out there.
And you probably agree with me, Jeff. You may have said this to her, but right now, in the moment, I mean, if somebody asked me, what is the difference? I would say, well, 3 years ago, do you remember how much gasoline was when you put it in your
Right.
car? Right? It was $1.87 or
Yeah.
under $2. And what is it now? And you say, do you remember how much you were paying for beef and chicken and lettuce and tomatoes and everything in the grocery store 3 years
Rent.
ago?
Yeah. Rent, interest rates.
Because those are the things that they have to be experiencing that in their lives. Everybody is going through that because we all buy food and we all buy gasoline.
Right.
So that's where I'd start with them.
No, you're right. That's the old George Washington quote when he says, "It's a shame that in our nation the people have to feel before they see."
Yeah, he's
But
right.
that's almost a natural law.
Yeah. That realize it until it something really slaps her in the face.
Yeah.
Because and the economy right now. Did you guys just hear about they overestimated the jobs by 1 million? Only 1 million?
I did not.
Yeah.
You heard of it?
The what do they call it? The
Labor Department.
well, the acting general, what do they call him? That oversees every department for waste, fraud, and abuse and all that,
The Inspector General.
Inspector General, right. They came out and
Mhm.
said that they overestimated the jobs growth by 1 million, only 1 million.
Wow.
And they said that the Federal Reserve knew that back in March. They knew that number was wrong back in
Again,
March.
losing credibility.
Yeah, again,
One,
so, but
Yeah, but they've been doing that. They've been doing that for years. They always give you this rosy picture of the employment situation, and then they make the correction on page 7 2 months later.
Yeah.
Right now this is August. We'll be getting the correction for June on page 7 somewhere that they just overguessed by 1 million jobs.
well,
Right.
The headline's already out there.
the funny thing to me is how when they talk about inflation, right? The big inflation items they leave out of the list. So inflation doesn't look really as bad as it really is, right? I never understood that formula.
Well, here's the thing. They just recently came out and said inflation was below 3% now.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is 3% year over year. Last August,
Right.
prices are only up 2.9% from last August.
After
What
they
they don't
got
tell
up
you
40,
is,
right?
yeah, they don't tell you about the August before that, and the August before that, and the August before that.
Right.
So you put 2.9% on top of 30%, and inflation's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well,
anyways,
complaining about the cost of housing, and we just, there's not a lot of hope of that coming down.
Yeah, that's well, how is housing in Tucson? Are houses selling in Tucson, or is it a buyer's market now?
It's really, from my perspective, it's neither. There's not a lot of inventory and things aren't going very fast
Yeah.
off. And I do think it's interest rate related and price related,
Yeah.
both, because you had the interest rates go up and the costs go up.
Right.
So you're kind of in you're in a bad cycle right now.
Yeah. So it's
And-
not a good time to sell.
Well, I mean, it really depends on location, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you're in a good location, you can sell and do very well.
Are you in Oro Valley, Jeff?
I'm just south of Oro Valley.
Just south. Okay.
Yeah, but in there. And Oro Valley's pretty good. You get down into Green Valley, it's very soft there from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Some of the outskirts, but it's location dependent. But we also saw this in the 07, 08 crash. It started in certain areas and then kind of went out.
Right.
went out and just kind of juggled around depending on location.
Well, the
Hard to
problem,
tell what's happening.
yeah, the problems in Florida now aren't, there are plenty of people moving here and plenty of buyers, but the problem now is that insurance has gone up so much, home insurance,
Mm.
and is really hurting a lot of people, especially, if you've got a beach house, your, your insurance is going to be about 3 times what your mortgage is. So,
Isn't that something?
oh yeah, it's incredible. And then
Really?
the other problem is the condominium guys. They're raising the HOAs so high that people can't afford the condominiums because the HOAs, HOAs are raising because they got to pay insurance companies, for the
Right, right.
condominium. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword here, and they've taken a lot of steps. The legislature has, and DeSantis, to try to calm all this down, and it's sort of working. We have more insurance companies coming in now to take up the slack, and they actually have a state-based insurance company that
Hmm.
will help people with their insurance. But we have a lot of people that could afford the real expensive insurance. They're very rich people, but they jumped on this state plan to save money. And so a lot of the people that really need the state plan can't get on it. So they
Oh
got,
God.
yeah, so they got to work all that out now. So, with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right?
Yeah.
In the Democrats' case, if for every action, there's a unintended consequence. So, yeah,
Or
it's
maybe
crazy.
intended, who knows?
Yeah. So how is it down in Green Valley, Paul? You pay attention to the real estate market down there? Is it soft?
We're actually, we're not in the market at all. We're happy where we are, but
Oh yeah,
the
sure.
house next door to me, they asked $399 for it, and in not too long, they got $389. So
Hmm.
Okay.
that was good.
That's very good.
Yeah, so that was just the beginning of summer. Beginning
Hmm.
of summer. And I haven't really kept up with anything since then. Uh, the values kind of wallow a little bit, but overall, from the time we bought this place 12 years ago till now, we've had almost 100% return
Yeah.
on the investment.
So it must be really tough in like West Tucson and South Tucson and those areas. Is that where it would
Really,
be?
like I said,
The values are still up, and that's a pretty decent price range. I think if anybody's under 450, you probably are going to see it go pretty quick.
Yeah.
When you get over that, then the interest rates really start to bite into your monthly payment.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's hard to tell to see where we're going. I also think I talked to an agent down in Green Valley, Sarita area, a broker down there, and they really think a lot of people are just waiting for the election
Yeah.
to decide if they want to buy, sell, move, and interest rates are supposed to come down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I do think if Trump is elected, I do think the economic outlook, just in many businessmen's eyes, is going to be better. I think that's going
Oh
to get
yeah.
people to jump
Yeah.
off the dime.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't win, look, we're about a 50-50 split country. So maybe the other side's going to think, hey, so it's going to get better with Kamala, because sometimes perspective or perception are people's reality.
Yeah. Oh no, that's true. Yeah. Well, we're just going to have to go out and do our part and make sure that we get Trump back in the presidency, because I just don't believe that Kamala is capable of doing anything good for us. And
Yeah. Well, I really think that's the argument we need to go to the never Trumpers with, and those who are undecided,
Yeah.
that who's going to be the best person for the country.
Well, I heard today, there's something else, some other news bulletin, that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to make an announcement on Friday that he's going to quit his campaign and endorse Trump.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, are you kidding me?
No,
I read that too.
yeah, and he's also
Really?
Trump is also considering him to run health and human services for him.
Wow.
So there's
Hell,
a yeah
you
that
know,
that's pretty big. Yeah, a lot
That'd
going
be a
on.
real, that'd be a real switcheroo from old Dr. Death.
Yeah, yeah, and
well, I
I
think Trump is the kind of guy to reach across and do
oh
things like
yeah,
that,
no, he will. Yeah,
you
he'll
know?
what he thinks is the right thing to do for the American people. That's what he'll do. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why he had
Uh,
that union guy speak at the convention. You know, which
Oh,
is
just so smart.
just
I think he
unheard of.
should have had Tulsi Gabbard speak at the convention.
Oh, I do too. Yeah,
Because
yeah,
she's one I believe, and I really think I was talking to a buddy today. I do like JD Vance. I like his authenticity and his honesty
yeah,
and just willingness to get out there. Again, doesn't mean I agree with him on everything,
yeah.
but I love the authenticity. You can have a real conversation with him.
Oh yeah,
You're not going to have that with Harris or Walls. I mean, or just about any Democrat that I know of. You
yeah,
just very difficult. Where's your position on the Israeli conflict? Well, I don't know. Where's your position on men and women's sport? Well, just,
yeah,
it's a little bit crazy, but I do think JD Vance is a good pick. But the discussion was, what if Trump had picked somebody like Tulsi Gabbard? I mean, that just would have thrown people off.
yeah,
But to
yeah,
get RFK Jr.
yeah,
and people like that in the camp, I think
yeah.
is so smart.
I think
Real.
and RFK Jr. He's got some interesting parts of his campaign. One of them was food freedom. You know, he believes that farmers should be able to sell food to the public, right?
Right.
And there are some states, and there's a big case in there in Pennsylvania right now. And this attorney that I follow, Robert Barnes, who's a constitutional attorney, right? He's defending
Mhm.
an Amish farmer who the state of
Yeah.
Pennsylvania is trying to stop him from selling food to the public.
Right.
And it's a big case right now. So,
Yeah.
I
And why shouldn't they?
why
Why
shouldn't they? I
shouldn't they?
mean, why?
How
You don't need that in between group to handle all the
there's
food and all this
there's
stuff.
horror stories about
Yeah,
beekeepers trying to sell honey or
yeah.
lip balm or
Cattle
just
ranchers. Look
little
at cattle,
things
Jeff.
that these government employees think they're doing their job and come out,
Yeah,
it's like a few years ago with the cattle ranchers,
right.
with the ranchers really standing up against the BLM, which the BLM was started to help the ranchers survive
Yeah,
during the Dust Bowl and be a arbitrator between ranchers and water rights.
right.
And now, you have the BLM basically, at least a number of years
Yeah.
ago, trying to
Waging war on them.
exactly.
Yeah,
And this is what happens.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
You get the wrong people running those places, and yeah, it's another case of unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from us not doing our duty, Congress not doing their duty, but also the people that are hired by these agencies not understanding their duty
Yeah,
or the Constitution or what their role
right.
is and what they should be doing. But, it is true that when people seem to get a little bit of power, it's almost like a disease
Yeah,
that
yeah.
spreads and they want their own kingdom.
And that wasn't that something the Supreme Court just decided on about government agencies making their own rules
Yes, yeah.
and
Well, that was the
making
Chevron
yeah,
deference case
yeah,
that they
making
reversed.
law instead of
Yeah.
following the law, right? Just kind of writing their own
It's
little
hard to
laws.
believe that conservatives semi-supported that and looked at when that Supreme Court decision came out, I think in the 80s as a victory.
Yeah,
It really is hard to imagine that.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It is.
Article 1, Section 1, all legislative powers, you know,
Yeah,
are granted to the legislative branch.
yeah,
What do we not understand about that?
yeah. And
Well, it's
that's
just
exactly.
overreach.
Yeah, that's right. I think about the same thing now. Biden wrote this EO to give all these illegal citizenship, right? And I said, well, that's really not the law. The law of the land doesn't work that way. And an executive order does not give people citizenship. So don't be confused, just keep packing your bags and get ready to go. Because,
Yeah.
because, but it's infectious throughout, the government agencies and this White House and a lot of other. It's just crazy how they, making up the rule. I want to tell you guys a story, by the way. We have a sheriff down in Polk County, which is part of that is Lakeland, Florida, which is a little bit west of Orlando, between Orlando and Tampa. His name is Sheriff Grady Judd. Now, if you don't know who Grady Judd is, look him up on YouTube. He does a daily briefing every day. He just arrested a Venezuelan gang in Florida, right? That they said they are very sophisticated. They know how to breach security in homes. They followed people, they photograph them, they know all about them. They check them out at their business and then follow them home, their relatives, their family. And when the time is right, they go in and rob their homes. And they've taken millions of dollars it turned out like seven of the 8 houses that they went after were Orientals. The business
Goodness.
owners were Orientals, which they're trying to kind of figure that out or not, whether that's can call that a hate crime or not. But 4 of these Venezuelan gang members, they still have their hands on. The other 2, they couldn't get ICE to hold them. And they work with ICE down here. They don't ignore ICE down here. They work with them. But ICE would not hold these other 2, and they're in the wind now.
Jeez.
So they're off somewhere else getting a new name and a new passport. He said they had all the IDs for what, for who they said they were, but they weren't who they said they were. They weren't those people. So, but they still held on to 2 of them. But I mean, this immigration thing is affects everybody. It's not just
It
the
does.
border states, not to
Well, they
mention the
may
fentanyl
be
problem.
they may be targeting Asians. Years ago, I think it was Florida or South Carolina, one of the southern states had a problem with carjackings. And gangs knew how to identify rental cars and knew that rental car drivers were not armed.
I remember that. That was big in Miami for a while.
Yeah, they weren't armed.
Yeah.
And the Asian culture, they're coming from China or descendants from, Japan, and they don't have arms. They don't,
Right.
as a culture, I'm just saying they're not used to being armed. And that may have something to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, yeah,
saying
that's right.
it does,
Yeah.
but if you're going to target somebody, if you're 90%, I mean, in my home, I have a couple elk antlers hanging out front, and never mind the dog, beware of owner type signs. So if you don't know I'm armed inside, you probably can't read or look at a sign. But people don't want to necessarily target people who are armed.
Right.
So that could be. I'd be interested to find out.
Yeah, I do. I recall that, Jeff, back in it was Miami, because I remember they stopped some guy and he had a gun in his trunk.
Right.
And he pulled he pulled it out and shot a couple of them. So that kind of discouraged some of them that were thinking about doing it. But I remember that happening. Yeah, you might be right about that. Yeah, a lot. I think some of these people here were Vietnamese, that came over after the Vietnam War and after we left Vietnam and gave them back up to them, and they moved over here to get out of there so they wouldn't be murdered, but they're good business people. I know there's a lot of them up in Phoenix too, right? A lot of Vietnamese.
Yeah, it would be interesting to get an inventory of what was stolen, because a lot of the Orientals believe heavily in gold and silver, and precious metals as opposed to banks and things like that.
Right.
So that's probably why they were hit, because they tend to keep their treasures at home.
They said
Well, that's a good point,
yeah,
Paul.
that's a real
another
good point.
point.
They said some of it was jewelry, but they they haven't got the police haven't got their hands on a lot of this stuff. He said these people are very good at fencing this stuff and getting rid of it right away. They don't hold on to it. So they weren't sure about, they didn't want to talk much about where they were fencing stuff and how they were getting rid of it, but they knew they were very good at it and they were quick. So, but some of it was jewelry, and you're probably right. It's probably some gold and silver and some other stuff.
Yeah, that is really, really too bad,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. But yeah, check in with Sheriff Grady Judd. He has some very interesting news conferences every morning. He talks about some other group or people or somebody that he has arrested or they had a shootout with or whatever, right? He says, you're going to come into Polk County, you're just not going to do this stuff. You got to understand we're not going to let you do this stuff, right? And he is
he's pretty harsh.
Yeah,
listen, we need that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially this day and age.
Yeah. So how's the crime in Tucson, by the way, under Sheriff, what's his name? Sheriff Loser.
Nanos.
Yeah, Nanos. Pima County is crime up or and how is the Tucson with the I just curious about that because I would think that some of these illegals and gangs and the cartels would be working Tucson pretty hard.
It's kind of interesting, but I haven't seen a breakdown or anything like that as to year over year or whatever. But we know it's going on. We just don't know how big and bad it is.
Yeah.
And in the last primary, we had a Republican, Heather Lappin, who's been with the Sheriff's Department almost 20 years now. She was kind of outspoken, so they moved her into corrections. She's a lieutenant, and gave her one of the jails to run.
Is she the one? Is she the gal from Oro Valley?
Yeah, she's up in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heather Lappin.
She's very sharp. She just won the primary for again.
Yeah.
So
she's going to run against Nanos.
She is.
Yeah.
She's pretty sharp. I think she really has a lot of support from the department itself. I mean, from sheriff's deputies within the department.
Yeah. Did she work for Napier?
She must have.
Got the department.
She must have. Yeah, because she was in the department when Napier was there.
Yeah.
I went and talked to her after a speech she gave at the United Republicans there in Green Valley, and I quizzed her about her support of the Second Amendment, the Constitution per se, and I asked her if she was a member of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. She said she was not, but she would look into it, and I hope she does because I think that's a feather in anybody's cap.
Oh yeah.
You're in an organization that supports the Constitution and are constitutionally oriented. People are going to start drawing to that. Trying to get the idea that when we look at what the government has, how it's flowed over the edges of its box, if you will, and we got to get them back in the box. The 17 items in Article 1, Section 8, they're just wandering off the reservation on that in those enumerated powers.
Yeah.
And,
well, it's a great organization because it will give, it gives local sheriffs, it's not a union, but it gives them a club to draw from, not only support wise, but ideas and where where does their powers end and the federals begin, or more importantly, where does the federal end and their role as the last bastion of protection against federal encroachment.
That's Sheriff Mack's group, right?
It is.
Richard Madden.
Yeah, we had him speak down at the Cerritos Tea Party. We really like Sheriff Mack. He's a good guy. He's still going after his heart attack, I guess.
He is. He's teaching, and what a courageous guy. But I believe Sheriff, Mark Lamb in Pinal County in Arizona is just as brave, and he ran for the Senate here.
Yeah.
But
is he going to stay the sheriff? Is he going to be the sheriff in Pinal County? or can
I
he?
think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm going to try. I do know him personally.
He didn't have to resign to run.
No, he did not.
No,
Yeah.
He was still wearing two hats when he was running.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. You don't
But
want to lose those good people.
no, I mean, he's like a walking tall type of sheriff.
Yeah.
I, I, I mean, he really is. He doesn't put up with stuff, and he's got a lot going on in his county as well.
What is Paul Babu doing now? Do you know?
he blew away with the wind somewhere. I don't know. I can't remember. He had some ambitious plans, but
I just
Oh.
I hadn't heard anything about him, but I know he's still around Arizona.
I haven't heard about. I haven't heard from
from
her
him.
about it.
Yeah.
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 I know the Tucson Police Department, as well as many police departments, and that's why I really like to teach local law enforcement,
Yeah.
policing with a purpose and other constitutional oath of office issues. And they all went through just kind of a low point with the defund the police and George Floyd issues. And Tucson Police Department was no exception to that. But I think the culture from the top was really hurt by the leader they had. But then he got hired on by the Biden administration and left. And the new chief of police, I think, is just fantastic. I think the morale's coming back up. I think it did hit a low.
What was that? That was
And
Mangus, wasn't his name?
yes,
That's the guy that left. Yeah.
Yeah, he got
No.
fired for running the border patrol, right?
I believe he did. Yeah. Well, the thing is,
Kamala took it over and did such a great job.
yeah,
Right.
some people get fired upwards,
Oh
they
yeah,
keep
sure.
listening.
Yeah.
It's a way to get rid. I think Kamala's done that her whole life.
No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
But we
Don't
need,
even go there.
we need these local, I do believe that local law enforcement is the keystone of our republic.
Oh yeah.
And, I've taught this before. It really is. I think it's the impetus of why we did separate from the mother country, because we didn't want the redcoats policing ourselves.
Living in our
Way
houses, right?
before- Right. The writs of assistance and James Otis, who John Adams said was the father of the revolution.
Right.
And his first complaint was about writs of assistance, where the redcoats did not have to have a warrant for any specific item.
Yeah.
And they would just go, looking for things, and not just a house, but a whole block.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is not right. First of all, we can police ourselves. Thank you. And we don't want this to be going on. And that's why we do have a different local law enforcement system here in America, as opposed to France that has a federal police in Mexico and England. And it is broken up for a reason, and we're supposed to all stay in our lanes.
Yeah.
There's one guy who teaches the Constitution that calls that layered cake federalism. That you have layers and everybody can see it and knows where their lines are. And instead today we practice marble cake federalism, that it's all mixed up and you don't know where one line starts and the other ends. That's why I like these sheriffs really getting this constitutional knowledge.
Oh yeah.
And we saw such a lack of that over the COVID issue.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like, this is what we prepare for. And what was so sick is none of our governors, maybe one or two, okay?
The only one I know of was Christy Noem.
Christy Noem
did not shut down anything.
Yeah.
DeSantis kind of jumped on for a little bit, and then he jumped off. But
yes,
he did do some shutdown in the beginning.
Well, but even DeSantis, who I really like DeSantis, don't get me wrong, all these, but which governor called an emergency session of their legislative body?
Yeah.
I mean, you learn we fought a war, over no taxation without representation.
Yeah.
That's not just taxation.
Yeah.
That's any edict from an executive officer telling you what the hell to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But all these, they just don't know because they haven't studied it.
Yeah.
So why are you running for office if you are not prepared? Why would you it's kind of like, look, I heard that break dancer from Australia, why do you want to compete in the Olympics, which is basically what you're doing as a governor? in swimming or gymnastics,
Mhm.
if you have no idea what you're doing,
Right.
you're going to make a fool of yourself. It is only for self-aggrandizement. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most of these guys embarrass themselves. So we have an uneducated, not only populace, but leadership class.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them, Jeff, and you know, and I say I don't know about our side, but on their side, you know, their argument for saying when you say, well, you need to read the Constitution, you know, they come up with a living, breathing document, right? It
Well, that's true, but it's
that's
not
their
just
argument.
right. But it's not just reading the
Oh
Constitution.
yeah, sure.
And I'll give you an example. Okay. It's understanding the history around it. And I'll give you an example. John Joseph Ellis is a great historian out of the East Coast, written many books, on the founding fathers. He's just so brilliant. But he wrote a book about American voices and what he would do today. And this was years ago, 5, maybe 6 years ago. And I'm reading this, and towards the middle end of the book, he talks about how bad the conservatives are. So the mask comes off and you find out who he is. And he talks about originalism being an invention of Bork, of Justice Bork, and how evil the conservatives are because this is a new idea. And somehow, this new idea is poisoning the well of how we interpret the Constitution. And I'm going, what? Okay, this guy he's an Ivy League professor at the highest level. And he's trying to tell us that originalism is a Bork invented new age conservative idea? Are you an idiot? Okay, look, Joseph Story wrote, comments on the Constitution. And guess what? And in there he said, and of course he wrote that in 1832, 1833. So he'd been on the Supreme Court almost 20 years. And so he writes about how the Supreme Court in the Marshall Court, John Marshall, still the head of the Supreme Court, how they weigh cases. And guess what? Number one in a book written in 1832 that this moron thinks, if you're going to talk, know what you're talking about. The number one thing was we go back and look at the original intent of the founders.
That's the
original intent.
Right? Yeah.
It was not a Bork invention. Okay. And number two was we look at the text. What does it actually say? And so these kind of things get me frustrated with our leadership class because most of them, they affect a lot of people's lives and they're not prepared to perform when they get in the positions they hold.
Yep.
And the other problem is, as an educator, I try to go and teach and educate, but almost zero of them want to hear what you have to say. Because as soon as they admit they don't know anything, guess what? Yeah. They're vulnerable.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I get off my soapbox.
No, that's right. It's obviously your passion for the Constitution comes to the surface, Jeff. So go ahead, Paul.
I teach this biblical citizenship course out of Patriot Academy in Texas. And what I've done is I've created a little PowerPoint program for the first week of the series, because this program comes at you. It's on DVD discs, and it comes at you like trying to drink out of a fire hose. And I've taught this course this is my 5th time teaching it, and I'm still picking up things as I go along because it comes across like this, and you get A, B, and C, but you miss D, E, F, and G, and H, and I, and J, and all this kind of stuff down low. So I've put this program together to get the people kind of oriented to where we're going to be going for the next 8 weeks. But one of the things that I bring up is the fact that right now there's this talk about the living document, which we talked about as the Constitution being a living document. And I show them that's not going to work, because if you think about it, the Constitution is our supreme law. and the supreme law has to be the same every day. We don't know how to operate if our supreme law changes on a whim. And I use the example, you wouldn't want your mortgage to be a living document. You wouldn't want to go down to the bank and borrow $300,000 payable at $200 a month for 30 years, and then have your banker call you back and say, by the way, we just whopped around on your mortgage and it's now $3,000 a month for 40 years. That's a living document. And I said, we can't have that in the Constitution because we need stability. And I said, you wouldn't probably want your marriage contract to be a living document, where it
Well,
says,
and it's how you define living also,
sure,
because
sure.
they're capturing the vernacular. I really, and that's kind of the term that both left and right use, but they try to capture that. I like to say, yeah, it's a living document. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean up to your whims of interpretation, because if we want to amend it, we can, but it's a contract.
Right.
It's a compact among states, an agreement that, a lot of people don't understand. The states are the parent.
Mhm. Yeah.
Big Daddy is not the federal government. It's not supposed to be. And
the federal government's not even a party to the Constitution.
Well, that is a very good point. Right. It's a creation of. And then you get
Right.
back to who has the final say in this kind of thing. But I think we're at a time where, the people of the states do need to kick back a little bit through their local officers and sheriffs and governors to be able to say, no, we're okay. That power is not delegated to the federal government. So we're good taking care of that on our own.
I wanted
But
to
we do
I wanted to mention to you guys about, I think Tom Homan. You know who Tom Homan is? He's probably going to be Trump's Border Patrol or
CBP or whatever.
Probably run Homeland Security,
Right,
I bet.
right,
But
right.
he's putting together the deportation plan, and I know the deportation plan. What they're planning on is having local police and sheriffs help them find these people, because he says they know where the criminals are at. The first ones to go are going to be the criminals, right? And they know where they're at in their community.
Well, as long as they give them the resources,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like, look, we have to be consistent. And back in the Brady bill, the federal government wanted the sheriffs to enforce the Brady bill. And that was part of the Sheriff Mack lawsuit.
Right.
So as long as they give them, their agency, but also the resources to do it.
Yeah.
Because you could have some say, no, that's your responsibility, so go do it.
Oh,
And
they
then-
will. Some of them will.
Oh,
say
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Some of them will do that. So, yeah. So, listen, I think, that's a good topic for another show, though. I was just thinking about if, and I pray to God this doesn't happen, if Kamala becomes our president, which to me is unimaginable. What steps are some of the red states going to take under that umbrella?
Right.
Will some states start to withdraw from the United States?
You see, one of the things that I also teach is that when the Articles of Confederation came out, the title of that document was the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. And when they came up with the Constitution, they left out perpetual union. And so Abraham Lincoln, in his zeal to save the Union, really created a war that was unnecessary and effectively illegal. There was no legal requirement for the South to stay in the Union. That was his idea. So we got that problem. There's a lot of scuttlebutt on the internet about civil war if this breaks out. But one of the things that's got me kind of tweaked right now is if Joe Biden was too senile to stand trial for violating the Espionage Acts and whatever with his documents, why is he still running the country?
Yeah, we're all asking that question.
And what's going to happen between now and January? Now, so what happens if the 25th Amendment him and Kamala becomes president? But, you know, the machinations there are just kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, I think
So,
they
I
made
don't think,
I think they made a deal with him that they wouldn't enact the 25th Amendment if he just wouldn't run again. They're willing to just let it
yeah, they
go
made a
as is
bargain.
until January. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but is our country secure with a leader
Of course not.
that can't find his way off stage?
No, no, we're not. But
Yeah, no.
yeah,
The next few months are going to be something to watch very carefully.
yeah, yeah. Well,
You
let's
know,
think
this,
about that for another future show. Let's
sure.
have that as one of our subjects and be thinking
Yeah.
about that. What does that world look like to us? What does the United States look like? Because I don't know about, the Civil War talk, an actual Civil War, but I know some states are going to say, hell no, we're not going to do that. The
Yeah,
government's going to say,
I doubt we're going to be looking at any secession, but
yeah,
I do think you'll have states banding together to find out ways that they can balance the power coming out of DC.
and DC always uses the purse to threaten people, right?
Right.
But the big states like Texas and Florida and some other states, they can be self-sufficient. They have enough food and goods and people
Yeah.
and
The problem
ports and
is
things
though,
that they can go on their own. They don't need the United States to help. Now,
but the
they won't have
problem
the
is,
United States Army to defend them,
right.
but
Well, but they could go on their own, but I'm saying staying in the Union. The problem is the same problem South Carolina had back in 1830,
yeah,
1828 with the tariffs, is they were paying more in tariffs to the federal government, who were then using it on internal improvements elsewhere.
mm,
And so, you could say, I don't want any of the government funding, and that's not a bad thing because that's what it's going to take to stand up. But then the federal government pretty much drains your state and people of all of its, all of its money, at least tax money, and rewards the states that are complicit and compliant.
and the first thing they
That's a
would
big
threaten,
problem.
first thing they would threaten to take, Jeff, would be our Social Security. But
Right. Well,
we'll cut off all the seniors in that state. They're not going to get their Social Security next month. That's the first thing.
I actually think it would start with healthcare. I think they'd still pay the Social Security benefits because it's something promised them.
Yeah,
But it could be, healthcare
that's a good point.
or education money
Yeah,
or road money
yeah,
or whatever else, bribery that we've gotten used to as states, giving it to them and having them redistribute it back.
yeah.
Yeah, I've always had a feeling that one of the things we ought to do is require the members, the citizens in the state to fill out the federal tax form, mail it in and send the check to the state treasury and let it build there and let the federal government come and beg us for money instead of vice versa.
That's hey,
I don't think that's going to go over well, but
I like that plan. Can you get that started, Paul?
I just did.
Let's
I've got
get
the
it
core
going.
right here.
That's right.
So we've been going a little over an hour now, but there's something I want to show you guys. Changing the subject now. It has to do with the Middle East, and I'm gonna try to do this share document thing real quick.
Hmm.
Okay, so stand by here a minute. Let me see if I can make this work. I guess you guys can't see it, can you?
It just says sharing screens. You started sharing. There it is.
Can you see it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
IRCG founder.
Yeah. This is the guy that's IRGC is the Revolutionary Guard in Iran. This is the guy that started it, and he lives in the United States now. He's been here for 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
And he says that Iran couldn't sustain itself in a long-term war with Israel, and that's why they haven't done anything yet. This is out of the Jerusalem Post. They interviewed this guy.
Wow.
His name is Mohsen Sazagara. Sazagara.
Hmm.
He said the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in the heart of Tehran was a humiliation for Iran's intelligence organizations. And he says because of that one act, Iran's just in turmoil now. They're really trying to decide what to do. And so I wanted to bring this to your guys' attention, and when we talk about the Middle East, but I think this is one of the reasons that they haven't attacked Israel yet, because they're really afraid to do it. You know, they said they could launch a bunch of missiles toward him, but the retaliation, they can't. They could stop no retaliation. A large-scale Israeli retaliation to any Iranian attack, according to Mossad Sazagara, founder of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said Iran is no position to fight a long-term war with Israel, and even asked the U.S. to intervene to prevent a possible large-scale Israeli retaliation. So anyway, I just wanted you guys to know that.
Well, and that's good news,
Yeah, well,
right?
it's good news. Yeah.
But the bad news is, if they are in a poorer position now to maintain a war, how much worse were they 4 years ago?
Before Biden gave him $50
Exactly.
billion
So
earlier.
as bad as they are now, it's still better than they were under Trump,
Right.
because
Yeah.
they were on the verge of just, no money at all, and all of a sudden they had money to support Hamas and
Yeah.
Hezbollah and
And-
proxy
and-
wars
and
all over the
Part of
Middle
that
East.
article is about Iran trying to control Hamas and Hezbollah. They're having a hard time reining them in a little bit.
Right.
They don't like some of the stuff they're doing. So anyway, that's the Middle East for you, right? Turmoil, thousands of years. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, okay, guys, we're ready to wrap it up. You want to?
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
discussion today.
Great
Good
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are great. And thanks for all the constitutional stuff, Paul and Jeff. And it's really good to see you guys. Hopefully Bobby will be on with us next week. Be back from his fling in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wanted to tell Bobby that about the guy that went to Las Vegas in an $80,000 Mercedes and came home in a $250,000 Greyhound bus.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
That's happened before. Yeah, I don't know what Vegas is like now. I mean, I know it's grown more and it's more glitzy than ever before and everything, but what's it like after the pandemic? Have they fully recovered yet? Have they got all their conventions back
Well,
and all that?
actually, Mary Margaret and I go to the Special Operations Association reunion every year up at the Orleans Hotel
Okay.
in October, and we only missed 1 year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't go because they canceled it because of that thing.
Right.
But it was up and running last year, and they're looking forward to seeing us this year. So
So
Yeah.
they've got everybody back working in the hotels and everything's going.
I think so.
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Okay, man. Good to see
Not-
you.
Not
Thanks.
all the buffets are up and running like they used to be, though.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's my
not
favorite part.
not the same price either, right, Jeff?
I'm not a gambler, but I do like to eat.
I
So
know. Well, I used to
that's my
love
favorite
the dollar breakfast, right?
Yeah.
You could go eat breakfast any time of day, any time of night for about $1. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was good. That's good.
It's probably $5 now, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, you guys take care of
All
yourself.
right,
It's good to
take
see
care.
you.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye, guys.
Take care.
You know, very few people can see it.
Give up their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and just teach these things. And so I do think it's a little bit disheartening when I hear, you know, what's the real difference? And you can even see, or how many people really don't know who Kamala Harris. Few people can see it before they feel it.
I tell my daughter all the time, not my daughter, but my Patty's daughter is a little bit to the other side, and
Mhm.
I tell her I don't think she's going to ever realize it until it something really slaps her in the face. Yeah,
You know, very,
you
yeah.
know, because and the economy right now. Did you guys just hear about they overestimated the jobs by 1 million? Only 1 million?
I did not.
Yeah.
You heard of it?
The what do they call it? The
Labor Department.